You know, I went and researched it. I got my notes and everything. I mentioned this morning that there was somebody who once upon a time was arrested and convicted of leaking the name of an undercover CIA operative way back during the Bush administration. And I brought it up because that was what kind of happened during this little text chat with all of the intelligence people. Some of the conversation was regarding a covert CIA operative. And that reporter now knows who that person, that undercover person is. The identity has been shared. So let's talk about Louis Scooter Libby. He was the former chief of staff to Dick Cheney. He was also his national security advisor from 2001 to 2005. Now, Libby should know better. This guy's guess what? Ivy League educated. His undergrad is from Yale and he has a law degree from Columbia. Scooter Libby was indicted by a federal grand jury. There were 5 counts against him, and it pertained to the leak of the covert identity of an operative, a CIA operative. Valerie Plame Wilson was her name. He ended up being convicted on 4 of those counts. So 1 was an obstruction of justice, 2 were counts of perjury, and the 4th one was making false statements to the FBI. His original sentence was 30 months, but it was commuted by George W. Bush. So essentially, they let the conviction stand, but they just basically let him out of jail. He lost his law license. His law license was suspended up until 2016 when he was able to have it reinstated. And then Trump fully pardoned him on April 13th of 2018. So he absolved those charges against Scooter Libby. Now, here's what happened. Between 2003 and 2005, it had been speculated around Washington, D.C. that it was Libby that had leaked classified information about Valerie Plame. Now, she was a covert CIA agent, and she is the wife of Joseph Wilson. Now, Joseph Wilson was a U.S. diplomat, and Wilson had been sent to Niger to investigate the rumors that Saddam Hussein was trying to buy yellow cake uranium, which is used for nuclear weapons, which, by the way, was the entire excuse manufactured by the George W. Bush administration to go to war against Iraq. So Wilson goes to Niger. He does some snooping around and finds out that, hey, there's nothing here. In fact, he writes an op-ed in the New York Times, and he's basically like, this is a big nothing burger. So he announces to the whole wide world, there's nothing here. There's no there. This is not a thing. Dick Cheney and his pal W are mighty pissed off. Now, Scooter Libby seems to think that he can get away with leaking this, and he does so to a handful of reporters. One of them is a woman named Judith Miller. She worked at the New York Times. Now, Judith Miller was later thrown in jail on contempt of court because she refused to reveal her source. Like, she received the information. Now, as far as I know at the time, she wasn't the first to publish it, certainly, but she ended up going to jail for contempt of court. The person who published it was a reporter from the Washington Post by the name of Robert Novak. He was the one that printed Valerie Plame's real identity. So the law catches up with Scooter Libby. He is indicted by a grand jury, stands trial for this, and after 10 days of jury deliberation, they find him guilty on 4 of the counts. They convict him on 4 of the counts, and he is sentenced to 30 months in jail, a $250,000 fine, and he's required to do 400 hours of community service. Now, again, like I'd said, he did no jail time because George W. Bush commuted the sentence, and then later on, Donald Trump fully pardoned him. So he now, as it stands today, has no charges against him. For her part, Valerie Plame, she'd spent her entire career advancing through the CIA. This absolutely ruined her career. But she went on to write a book. Now, by the way, when she wrote a book around the subject, there was a ton of pushback. She had to go to court. She had to fight to get her book published because there were so many people within the administration that didn't want this story out. But later, the good news is both she and her husband wrote books, and later they made a movie about them. Fair Game. It stars Naomi Watts and Sean Penn. Maybe go catch it on Netflix. I don't know. But that is the story of Scooter Libby, and that is what happened the last time someone said in front of a reporter, this is the name of a CIA undercover person. And the reporter went, oh my, I now know the name of an undercover CIA operative. That guy was indicted.